Welcome to episode 662 of the Entertainment 2.0 podcast, brought to you by thedigitalmediazone.com. I'm Josh Pollard.
And I'm Richard Gunther, and this is the show that puts you in control of your favorite movies, music, shows, and games.
Yeah, we're back live and in video and all of that. Like we solved. Yeah, it's been a long time. I fixed my camera issues. That ended up being a much bigger pain than I expected. Something got screwed up with OBS, and I had to redo everything.
That's not fun. And yeah. I found some light. Not ideal light, but it's light.
It's better light than you had last time, for sure.
Yep.
So we're back on video, which means that if you're not already watching this on YouTube, you could be. So head on over to our YouTube channel, like the video, and subscribe, of course, please. So tonight, what are we talking about? Well, we've got news out of Plex. They are changing their focus completely, and I'm very curious to see what Richard thinks about this. Some news out of Amazon and how they're unfortunately bringing more ads to Prime Video. The Pixel Buds 2 have a feature that I've been waiting for and might finally push my purchasing decision over the edge. And Spotify getting smarter about offline playback. So let's get into the listener feedback. Oh, wait, we don't have any. So if you'd like to send us some for next week, you could leave us comments on YouTube, you can tweet us, or you can just do what most people do, which is email us at entertainment20@thedigitalmediazone.com. If you want all the rest of that contact information, it'll be at the end of the show or in our show notes over at www.thedigitalmediazone.com. So, diving into the news this week, Plex back to the top of our show notes for the first time in a while, really.
A good while. Yeah.
It feels like it's been forever when there was a long time when Plex was pretty much always the first thing that we talked about. Well, this time around, Plex is making a fairly major change to the primary Plex apps. So the Plex app that you might have on your phone, you might have on your home theater PC, you might have on your Android TV box. These are the apps that are changing. And what they're doing is shifting their focus to focus exclusively on movies, shows, and live TV. And you're thinking, well, how is that a refocusing? That's what I use my Plex server for. Well, that's kind of the point, actually, because not forever, but for a long time, you've also been able to make media libraries for your photos and for your music and watch and listen to those things inside of the Plex app, regardless of which Plex app you're using. And that's what's going away. If you're opening Plex on your television, eventually you will only have the experiences for movies, shows, live TV, those sorts of things. Photos and videos won't be there. We'll get into when they'll be gone later. But why are they doing this, and what are your options here? Well, why they're doing it is because most people aren't using it. 0.2% of users access photos on primary Plex apps currently. 0.2%. In terms of music, I guess mathematically it's a lot more users than photos, but we're still only looking at 2.5% of Plex users per month are using music. So what they've decided is if no one's really using these features and it's kind of hard to support them and it takes a lot of resources to try and make these things work well on a TV device, why are we still doing it? So they're getting rid of them from the primary Plex experience. Richard, I am sure you have feelings about this from the viewpoint of a Plex user and from a guy who really focuses on user experience design in the context of software development.
Well, and also as someone who has quite a bit of music content in my Plex media server. So personally, I get it. I think that this is a good strategic move for them. Now, is it going to make everybody happy? No, it's probably going to piss off a lot of people. Bust Out in the chat is mentioning that they're kind of alienating users that made them as big as they are. And I think there's some truth to that. But the problem is that they've been acting like they're bigger than they are. They've been creating content that turns out it's really hard to scale across a baker's dozen of different platforms. So when you're trying to be somebody's everything media machine, because they just keep on adding stuff and keep on trying to be more of your central hub and focus for media, all your media, turns out that's hard. Interesting that they didn't at all discuss some of the things that they've added more recently, like, for example, the FAST services, the free ad-supported streaming services that they offer, or the cataloging of all the stuff everywhere so that you can look stuff up and find content anywhere you want or search for it anywhere. That also takes time to maintain. And unless that's done through a third party that they're just licensing, I imagine that takes resources too.
Well, the FAST services would fall under that shows thing that they are keeping inside of the main app.
Yes, technically, I agree with that. And you could argue that so does their curation that they're doing, where they're allowing you to kind of have your master list of stuff that you want to see sourced from anywhere, and then it can point you out to it. But for me, this is kind of what I use Plex for. I use it for movies and shows. So I gave up on live TV a couple years ago because the experience was so terrible. And I understand that it's improved. This could be a really good thing for the live TV people, because it could mean that they're going to refocus on making that experience a whole lot better and, maybe better integrated than it is already. So I think it's a good move. Like I said, it's not going to make everybody happy. It 100% aligns with how I use my Plex app, with the exception of the music being in the library. Now, there's good news there, which is that this sort of content can still be in your library. It will still be a part of the Plex Media library, which you can then access through services like Sonos or whatever else. It just won't show up in the Plex on-screen experience that you're used to on your television or your mobile device that you're using.
Yeah, and that is the answer here, is that the functionality doesn't completely go away. It only goes away basically on your TV devices and from the main Plex app on mobile. But what they're doing instead is giving you two standalone apps. Plex Amp has existed for a while. You can get that on your mobile device now, connect to your Plex server, and listen to your Plex music through Plex Amp. They've, as part of this announcement, launched a beta of a Plex Photos application that is essentially the same thing. It's a mobile app for your Android or iOS device that will connect to your Plex media server and allow you to view all of your photos. They're also expanding out functionality to make it easier for developers to do interesting things with Plex media libraries. That's more niche, of course, for other developers to do such things. It could mean that someone could make if you're listening to this, and I think maybe Bust Out in the chat is one of these people and is thinking, but I do listen to music from my Plex server on my television because it's hooked up to the best speakers in my house. There's nothing preventing someone from taking these APIs and making a Plex music player for Google TV or something like that. And I kind of wonder if they'll do the same thing. Like, they have Plex Amp already. could they make a TV-based version? But if they did, would it be kind of pointless? Like, then they'd have to go back to supporting Plex music on a TV interface. I'm not sure. There's for sure pros and cons to that approach. Photos, a 0.2%. It's practically nobody that's using it. But the music I could kind of see. But I like that you point out that there are other ways of getting access to that, like through the Sonos app.
One other thing is that Bustout's also mentioning in the chat is that these sorts of features, when they came out, were features that you had to pay for. And subscribers paid that pro subscription pricing to be able to get advanced features like this when they were first released. And so it's kind of an extra stab for those who've been paying that now this is something that ends up going away. And I get that. I totally get that.
Yeah. If you are one of the very few people using these features, this does suck. It's just that the math wasn't in your favor, unfortunately. All right, well, we will keep an eye on this. The timeline is fairly straightforward. The Plex Photos app is in beta now. Plex Amp has been around for a few months. Those will remain in beta for the next couple of months, and sometime in Q4 of 2024 or Q1 of next year, those will exit beta. And at that point in time is when Plex will start removing music and photos from the primary apps. So that's roughly how long you've got until it's gone. And but maybe one of the important things to remember there is the library support doesn't go away. Otherwise, Plex Amp and Plex Photos wouldn't work anymore. If you still want to use Plex for cataloging these things, it's still there. You're just going to have to access them differently now.
And I also wonder when it's going away, I mean, really that means that newer versions aren't going to have it anymore. At least that's how I interpret that. So does that mean that if you chose not to auto update your apps and selectively update the apps on your TV streaming device, then you could keep using an older version that had those features? That's possible. We don't know yet.
Yeah, it's possible. They could eventually break something or make some breaking change in the server that would make that stop working. But yeah,
not
that's a
intentionally,
possibility.
But it's not a priority, so they don't care if they do.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, for some people that was bad news. For most people, this next story is also bad news. Yeah. So last year, Amazon started showing advertisements inside of their Prime Video application. Now, in their defense, they rolled it out pretty gently. You're not just like pummeled with ads if you use Prime Video right now. And if you really hated ads, they gave you the option. I'm really putting in a positive spin on that. They gave you the option of removing ads by simply paying more for the Prime Video that is included with your Amazon Prime subscription that you're already paying for.
Right. No, you're right, exactly. So pay us for the thing that you're already getting with a thing that you pay for. $3 a month is what they want to remove ads. I want my $3. I'm kind of messing up a movie quote there, but and I was not at all interested in doing that. And you're right; these haven't been terribly egregious, for lack of a better word. But if they are really looking to expand this, and this gets to be like YouTube, we're going to annoy you until you pay us, then this may end up being another thing that people end up deciding they have to pay for.
Yeah.
Which is just makes me feel icky.
But we haven't even gotten to the news yet.
They're going to do more of it.
Because the news gets worse. Yes, they are going to be selling more ads. It's done well. And so starting next year at some point, they're going to start selling more ad slots to advertisers.
And can you clarify what you mean by it's done well? How did they measure that?
But money? Partly it's money. So, they're making a boatload of money on this. But what they said, and part of this is a quote, they have not seen a groundswell of people churning out or canceling. People are still using Amazon Prime Video is what that means.
Yep.
And
we didn't piss off all that many people,
right.
So we'll push harder.
They probably pissed off about the same number of people who use music on Plex, apparently. And so they've decided ads are fine. And because we've already been displaying fewer ads than most of our competitors, and they do point out fewer ads than you will see on television, which is totally true, then they could probably put more in without really damaging things too much. So that's what they're going to do. They, of course, aren't saying how many more and things like that, but you can expect more ads with Amazon Prime Video starting next year. One thing that I think is interesting that they're also going to be changing is they're going to make it possible for you, if you're watching an ad for laundry detergent and they sell that laundry detergent on Amazon, you could click a button to add it right to your cart from the ad. And part of me hates that, and part of me thinks it's brilliant.
I mean, it's it's inevitable. And frankly, I think I'd rather that than the whole thing where you can buy anything that you want on this screen, which they're already doing. So this actually seems less invasive. If you're already advertising a product to me and I'm interested in it, then yeah, why not? Why not have it there?
Yeah,
it's kind of like
exactly.
TiVo used to have this thing where if a provider partnered with them and they were advertising a show on their network that was going to be on at a certain time, then TiVo could show a button that said, schedule this. And it would automatically throw it into your recording queue, whatever that was called, which I don't remember anymore. And this is kind of like a logical extension of that sort of convenience with advertising. So I think it's smart.
Yeah, I do think it's smart. And something that I think they will see decent usage of. It's a better experience than having to pull out my phone to buy it.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to our audio news this week. This one has me mostly excited. So this is where the good news comes in. I've been talking a ton about earbuds, headphones, and gaming headsets lately. I've also been talking a lot over the last year about a new Bluetooth feature called AuraCast. And every time you hear me talk about some new earbuds, I ask, I wonder if they'll support AuraCast, because those are the earbuds that I want to buy. So, as a reminder, what is AuraCast? AuraCast is a new feature in the Bluetooth spec that can be used in really two ways. One is you're maybe listening to something on your phone through your earbuds, and someone that you're with also wants to be listening to what you're listening to. Maybe that's music. Maybe it's the hilarious Instagram reel that you're watching. Could be anything, right? And you can then cast that audio to other devices that support this format. And so your friend that's sitting next to you could start hearing what you're hearing, but through their earbuds, without going through the crazy complicated process of pairing their Bluetooth earbuds to your phone. It also works in kind of the opposite direction, where maybe you're at an airport and your terminal is broadcasting announcements over a Bluetooth channel, you can tune your earbuds into that terminal's announcements without having to repair your headphones to it. It will just come through, sort of like connecting to a Wi-Fi network. That's the easiest example. And it's supposed to be super simple. You're not going to lose the connection to your phone or anything else that you've got your earbuds paired to. It sounds amazing. I want this in my life. But there have not been very many earbuds that have supported this. Well, it turns out, even though Google has not actually announced this, the Pixel Buds Pro 2 support Auracast. Maybe the reason they haven't announced it yet is because you can't do it with a Pixel phone. This is very weird. So, how do we know that you can even do this? Well, a lot of the new Samsung phones do support this. So, an article that we'll post a link to, they paired their Pixel Buds 2 up to a Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6. That Samsung Galaxy phone supports Auracast and even calls it that. They didn't come up with their own Samsung name for this feature, which would have been very Samsung of them to do.
Yes.
And as long as you have Bluetooth LE audio turned on for your paired headphones, it will allow you to do the Auracast feature where you cast what you're listening to out to other people. And he was able to take another phone with another set of earbuds and listen to the thing that he was streaming from the Galaxy Z Fold 6 to another Samsung phone. So when are you going to do this when you have a Pixel or some other non-Samsung phone? Well, Auracast is part of the Android 15 spec. And Android 15 is basically done, but it hasn't actually been rolled out super officially yet. Everyone is expecting that Android 15 will release as an update to Pixel phones and probably other phones too more broadly this month, the month of October 2024. That's great news for Pixel owners and people who have bought or are likely to buy Pixel Buds Pro 2 headphones are probably Pixel phone owners. The part that hurts for me is that it will only work in the Pixel lineup of phones on Pixel 8 and newer phones. I have a Pixel 6 Pro. So I'm still a little bit out of luck on this one. Now, will I be updating my phone? For Auracast, I might, but I'm still doing the whole contract-y sort of thing until April, I think, on my phone. So I would either have to pay it off early or do some shenanigans like that to be able to get a 9 Pro. And also, frankly, outside of this, I don't feel like I really need a new phone. My Pixel 6 Pro is still fantastic. But for this, I might make an exception, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I will. My kid could probably use a new phone. I could do a hand-me-down of my Pixel 6 Pro.
Down to her.
Right. It makes sense. I'm doing my good fatherly duty by getting myself a new phone. So I'm excited about this. I am very curious to know if we can get some people with these fancy new Samsung phones to be testing other popular earbuds that are launching now. Because in theory, all of these earbuds that we keep talking about that are supporting Bluetooth 5.3, in theory, they all can support Auracast. We just don't know if they actually are because there aren't many phones that support it yet. So we will absolutely continue to watch this space and keep you all updated. All right, our other audio story, and actually our last news story of the week, no gaming news. Sorry for all of you gamers out there this week. Spotify is doing something that I think is kind of smart and kind of cool. If you're the type of person, maybe you get on airplanes a lot, and you do occasionally use Spotify's offline playback functionality, they're making this a whole lot easier on you. For those of us who do this a lot, we've probably just automatically gone in and made our own playlist and set them to download for offline playback. But now you don't really need to do that anymore, because what Spotify is doing now, if you take your phone and you put Spotify into offline mode, it will automatically put a big button right in the middle of the screen that says offline backup playlist. And it is a giant playlist of all of the music that it's already stored offline on your phone. And that, of course, will include anything that you manually told it to back up for offline playback. But even if you don't, basically anything that you've listened to recently, they just store it on your phone for a little while because you're probably going to listen to it again. So why download it from their servers again? It saves them and you bandwidth by doing that. And it just takes up storage room on your phone. And so you might be thinking, well, that sounds great, but I listen to a lot of different things. And what if I really only want to listen to a certain type of music while I'm on the airplane? Well, they've solved that too, actually, because when you open this playlist, you also get a set of filters where you can filter which music out of this playlist that you want to listen to, essentially based on genre or mood. And so for me, my music is all over the place. Here's just a few of the filters that popped up for me when I opened this. Cozy, Americana, EDM, worship, pop, upbeat, ambient, country rock, club, and it just goes on and on and on. And so, if you're just looking for some, upbeat ambient music, then you can click those filters and just listen to that and not listen to the Americana music that, maybe that falls into some of those, but whatever suits your need, you could listen to. And it takes all of the work out of this. I really, really like this feature. I think it's one of the smartest things that Spotify has done in a long time.
Yeah, it sounds really slick. And you're right, for that exact use case, being on a plane, I usually do have at least 2 or 3 playlists that I just have set to download automatically in Apple Music for this very reason. And it is my favorites or my most played, things like that. So it's very similar. The thing that caught my attention here is the filters. And I'm curious, you're a Spotify user. Are these filters available anywhere else in Spotify? Because you may remember the primary reason that I left Spotify was because of a few very specific songs that I occasionally listen to. It insisted on including Spanish language and contemporary Christian music in any station or automatic recommendation thing that it was putting together for me. And I didn't want that. I couldn't untrain that behavior. The only way that I could was to create a new account. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing that. I'll just go to Apple Music at this point. Right. So these kind of filters elsewhere in the system, I could see as being very useful.
Yeah, they for sure would be, especially with my release radar. They are not anywhere else in the system yet, but I think they would be crazy not to implement these throughout the rest of the application, especially in their automatically generated playlist. That would be really, really awesome. I love that idea. So hopefully we see it soon. And hopefully when they do that, they also bring it to the desktop player, because I spend a lot of time with the desktop app on my computer while I'm working throughout the day. So that's where I would really want that.
So do they not keep that feature parallel?
No, there's a lot of things that are only in the mobile app.
Oh, that's funny because when I started with Spotify, it was the other way around. Like the desktop was the most feature-filled app. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like they have way more features in the mobile app, and that the mobile app is the first place to get most of them. And I'm sure that's a usage thing too. They probably have most people spending most of their time in the mobile app, as opposed to me, who most of my like 80% of my usage is on a computer. 15% is on my Android TV box, and then 5% on my phone. I'm just the opposite of most people when it comes to my Spotify usage. All right, well, that's it for our news this week. So let's get into what's going on in our entertainment centers.
For me, not a whole lot. I'm still down at our rental place. And so just the basics. I've been keeping up with Big Brother. I am very, very happy to see the new season of Heartstopper on Netflix. I love that series. I think it's adorable. I wish this had existed when I was high school age, trying to figure out where my head was romantically. So, a really interesting story that touches, I think, on every single letter in the LGBTQ spectrum. So, if you have an interest in checking that out, I recommend it. It's on Netflix. I also watched, hey, we had a debate, and I think that was a week ago.
Yeah.
Maybe it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was
No,
last
I think
week.
that was a week ago.
Yeah.
So watched that, watched a bunch of commentary about that, watched all the news networks the next day fight over who actually won the debate. That's always fun too.
Mm-hmm.
And then while I'm here, I'm hosting some friends of mine from college, and our friend and friend of the show, Dan, is here as well. And so over the last couple nights, instead of putting TV on, we've just put 80s music videos on and just had that on in the background and kind of reminiscing about, oh, wow, this was crazy, or this was just completely ingenious for its time, and appreciating some of the older music video genre stuff. Back when we had a channel that played music on TV all the time, it was called Music Television. It was really cool.
You know, I'm a little bit disappointed that Dan is in that house with you right now, and then he's not upstairs watching the Twitch stream of the podcast. Come on, Dan.
Well, you know, there's other people up there too. That's it. That's it for me. I have not been fully up to date on my podcasts because it's hard to do that while I'm here. I did not get to start the new book that I wanted to start yet. So we'll see how the next couple of weeks go. When I drive back, I'll have a bunch of time on my hands. So maybe I'll start the book then.
Yeah, this is such a short list for you.
I know.
It kind of threw me off there. Yeah, my list is a little bit longer, and somewhat surprisingly, the theme here, with one exception, is I finished a bunch of stuff, which is kind of unusual for me. I have a bad habit of starting things and not finishing them when it comes to games and TV shows and stuff like that. Well, so let's start with games. I think I might have mentioned last week, maybe not, that NHL 25 is out. It's not a whole lot different than the last game. Still some of the same bugs that have been present for years. Still gonna play it all the time. Whatever. I did also play and finally finished the Final Fantasy VII Remake on my PlayStation 4. Took me about 40 hours, and that's despite the fact that the last at least 15 hours I played on easy mode. I'm just slow in these games. I'm not great. And that's even me, like, not doing all of the extra stuff to, like, oh, I'm going to figure out exactly what materia to combine with these weapons and blah. Like, no, I just stopped caring about that stuff at this point. I just wanted to make it through the game. I wouldn't say that I was hate playing it, but it wasn't that far off. I just wanted to be done. And so 40 hours of gameplay. And how does my PlayStation 4 reward me? Well, like many games, it it finishes with a closing cinematic, essentially like a 5-minute movie, 5-minute cutscene. And unlike a lot of the cutscenes in this game, this is completely pre-rendered. And the way that you know this is one of the really cool things that they did with Final Fantasy VII Remake is during the cinematic sequences, they were rendered like in engine. It wasn't just, here's this pre-recorded video we made of the characters. You knew this because like you're switching weapons and stuff throughout the game, and you would get to these cutscenes and it would show it with the weapons you had at that point in time, which I thought was impressive. Like that is more work to be able to do that. Closing cinematic, they don't do that. It's like the standard default weapons and stuff. So this is essentially just streaming an MP4 on my PlayStation 4, right? This is not difficult at all. And it's like a 5-minute video. What it did is I would see 4, 5, 6 seconds of video, and then the screen would go black and no audio for the next 5-ish seconds. And then it would come back on and the HDR logo would appear on my TV again. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I'm able to pause it and I go back out to the system settings and I'm like, maybe there's just something funky with HDR with this. So let me go into the PlayStation settings and turn off HDR. No one in the world should have to do this, but I'm going to try it. It didn't work. After 40 hours of playing this game, I didn't even get to fully watch the final ending movie. I had to watch it on YouTube the next day. I was so mad. And like the final movie barely makes sense. Like if you could have watched the whole thing, you probably still wouldn't have understood everything that was going on, unless maybe you're a hardcore Final Fantasy VII player and knew all of the stuff that happened in the original game and in one of the spin-off games. I'm not gonna play the remaining 2 Final Fantasy VII Remake games. It's not happening for me. Maybe I'll play the original one, especially now that they've released an updated version of that makes it a little bit more modern in a lot of ways, makes it easier to get through. But man, I'm not doing this again for another 2 40-ish hour games. That's not going to happen, which I know disappoints some people. I honestly don't completely understand why this game got the reviews that it did, because there were many people saying game of the year for this game. And Joe DiStasio and I were playing through this together, and we have pretty similar feelings. And he's even a guy that played through all of the original Final Fantasy VII, and he was like, the only thing that was really keeping me going was the nostalgia of the fact that I did play the original. It's just not as good as what everybody said that it was. Sorry, it's not.
So do you think it was just a buffering issue, or was there something wrong? I mean,
I don't know. Like, he didn't experience this. We were both playing it on PS4. I didn't search Google to see if other people have had this problem. This wasn't some marathon, like 9-hour gaming session. And maybe I don't think it was like my PlayStation 4 overheating or something like that. I don't know. I've never had this sort of problem on my PS4,
weird.
But also I don't play my PS4 very often. So, my PS4 probably has under 200 hours of actual usage time on it. So
now that you've gotten to that point, though, do you have an option to go back and try and just play that?
That's a good question. There is a level select. I could probably select the last level again and play through the final boss and all of that again. But I don't know that I can just go and rewatch
to that video. Yeah.
Yeah. But fortunately, YouTube. That was the answer.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So that's it for games. On TV, we finished Designated Survivor. I think I like the ending. I'm not going to get into any sort of spoilers because I do think that people should watch the show. It was really good. The third and final season was not my favorite season. It was my least favorite season, but it's still good and definitely worth watching. And you're right. They ended the show. It was not just like, well, crap, 18 cliffhangers. They ended it. So I'm happy for that. And then I also started something new that hopefully I'll finish. And this actually takes us back to a story that we covered tonight. There is a new show on Amazon Prime Video called Face Off Inside the NHL. And if you're familiar with Drive to Survive, the F1 series on Netflix, that is what this is attempting to be, but for hockey. The problem is, hockey is not the soap opera that Formula One is. So I don't know that this is actually going to make a bunch of new hockey fans, but it's been entertaining. Like I watched the first episode this morning and I really enjoyed it, but I am a hardcore hockey fan. Of course I enjoyed it. I told my daughter about it. Drive to Survive made my daughter sort of a Formula One fan. Like, she follows it, but she doesn't watch the races. It's weird. And I was like, we could watch this together. And she's like, we could, I suppose. And then she told me that she's not going to watch it with me until I actually finish the last season of Drive to Survive with her. Because again, see previous comments about me not always finishing TV shows. So
fair enough.
I owe it to her to go back and finish watching Drive to Survive with her. It is a fun thing that the two of us can do. So I should do that. I should do that with her. And then books. I also finished something here. I finished the book, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. This is a pretty popular book by an author by the name of Grady Hendrix. It's good. Grady Hendrix is known for making horror type books that also say, but they're also like commentaries on something that's happening in the world. And this is more of a commentary on the life of middle-class suburban southern towns and the relationships between wives and their husbands. And it does a really good job of telling that, and it tells a really interesting vampire story in the process. Most people have really loved this book. My wife really loved it. We were doing this for my book club. I think my book club is probably going to really like it, but I won't know for a few weeks. I thought it was okay because the pacing just feels weird because they're like, here, we're going to start with some interesting vampire stuff. And then the middle 80% of the book is wives and husbands in the 90s. And then the last hour of the audiobook is back to the really interesting vampire stuff. And the pacing of that just didn't feel great. And so it felt like it was a pretty good social commentary book and a moderately good vampire book combined together. And so I think that makes it like a 3.5 out of 5. And when I told that to Jen, she's like, 3.5. So you hated it? And I'm like, I don't think that's what that means. And she's like, no, that's absolutely what that means when you're rating books.
What?
I don't know. I guess I'm not enough of a bookie to know that. I don't even know what they call themselves. They probably don't call themselves bookies.
So a rating of 5 is different for books than for other stuff? I don't understand.
I guess. I was like, if anything below a 4 means you don't recommend people read it, then that seems like people must be giving 5s out to a lot of things. And she's like, oh no. She's like, I've only given a 5 to a few things. And I'm like, so everything is a 4 or 4.5 then? That is a scale that doesn't have enough resolution.
Right.
That doesn't work. Sorry.
Yep, I agree. 100% I agree.
Bust Out says 3.5 is mid, not Ohio. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you for jumping on the things that, my teenagers would say. I love that. Okay, well, that's it for what's going on in my entertainment center. So let's wrap this up and give people some contact information for how they can get a hold of us. I'm on Twitter at Josh Pollard. The website is at DigiMediaZone. Richard is on Mastodon. So am I. He's at Richard Gunther. I'm at Josh Pollard. We also are back to doing the show live, typically Tuesday nights, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Follow us on Twitch and it'll just automatically notify you when that happens. But since we're doing it live, that means there's video, which means there's also going to be a video for this on YouTube. So if you're still watching this on YouTube and you haven't clicked like and subscribe yet, what are you waiting for? Click the buttons. I'll wait a second. Thank you for doing it. All right. And that's going to do it for episode 662. He's Richard Gunther and I'm Josh Pollard. Thanks for listening to Entertainment 2.0. Adios.
Goodbye.